Video Guide to the Birds of North America is your National Audubon Society's home video reference for family use in preparing for observing birds in nature. This production affirms your Audubon Society's commitment to environmental education, offering an innovative way to deepen the rapport each of us feels with nature. The printed publications of the National Audubon Society include award-winning Audubon magazine and American Birds, the field journal for committed bird enthusiasts. Volumes 1, 2, and 3 of the Audubon Video Guide described 18 orders of bird life, from the loons to the woodpeckers. The 4th and 5th volumes cover the one remaining order called the perching birds, or passerines. The passerines form the planet's largest group of bird species, of which this volume and the next describe 206 North American birds. The passerines are said by ornithologists to be the most evolutionarily advanced form of bird life, being highly adaptable and occupying a variety of lifestyles and feeding opportunities as their varied shapes and behavior suggest. In Volume 4 of the Audubon Society's Video Guide to the Birds of North America, we meet the flycatchers, adapted to waiting on perches to hawk passing insects. North America's only lark. The swallows, swooping aerialists who hunt on the wing. The colorful and vocal crows and jays. The tiny chickadees, titmice, and nuthatches who comb the twigs and trunks for insect larvae. Songful wrens. The dipper, who strolls the bottom of icy mountain streams. The Old World warblers, and the vireos. In all, an eclectic tribe sharing the ability to perch across the twig and a penchant for song. For each species, the video guide provides the information you need to identify the bird in the field and, where appropriate, a comment on the bird's ecology and population status. There's motion footage to show behavior, still photographs to give details of markings, and computer-generated maps of the North American ranges where they summer, where they winter, and where they are present at all seasons. Voice or other sound is included if that is helpful in identifying the bird, and there's a notation on length. The correct common name and the Latin name of each bird appear in the colored name band at the bottom of the screen. This colored name band indicates the major group to which each bird belongs and can be used to expedite locating a species in the cassette when your VCR is in the search mode. This list of the species covered in Volume 4 shows the video guide's reference number of each bird. If you would like to prepare an index, rewind the cassette to the opening and zero the counter on your VCR. Then play through the cassette, noting the counter values at the beginning of each description. Thereafter, if you zero the counter at the same location each time the cassette is loaded into your VCR, you can fast forward to the desired bird description. Members of the flycatcher family are mostly solitary birds that wait on exposed perches and fly out to capture passing insects. Many of the flycatchers are drab in color and are most easily recognized by voice. Although they look deceptively peaceful when at rest, the flycatchers known as kingbirds are fearless in defense of their territories. They will fly out to attack hawks, crows, and other large birds that venture too near, readily driving these predators away. East of the Great Plains, the only widespread member of this group is the eastern kingbird. It wears a clean-cut black and white pattern with a distinctive broad white band on the tip of the tail. In addition to its eastern range, the eastern kingbird is also found locally inland in the west in summer. Another fearless flycatcher of towns and open country, the western kingbird is patterned in gray and yellow. Its tail is black with a narrow white outer edge. Seemingly undisturbed by human activity, it may build its nest on a power pole on a busy street. Its bickering or sputtering song may be heard very early in the morning, before first light. Like most flycatchers, the western kingbird is mostly a summer resident in North America, but a few turn up in southern Florida every winter. Similar to the western kingbird, but with a more limited range, is Cassin's kingbird. This bird is darker gray on the head and chest, setting off the white chin, and it lacks the white outer edge on the tail. Cassin's kingbird is often found in more wooded areas at higher elevations than the western kingbird, although the two birds are sometimes found nesting in the same grove of trees. The harsh, low-pitched voice of Cassin's kingbird may be its best field mark in such cases. Found locally in the southeast, mostly in Florida, is the gray kingbird. It is gray-backed, has no white band on the tail, and sports a very heavy bill. The gray kingbird is often seen along roadsides and even nests in some of Florida's larger cities. The state bird of Oklahoma, the scissor-tailed flycatcher, is one of the most dramatic summer birds of the southern Great Plains. Perched on a fence or treetop in open country, it is recognized by its streaming black tail, pearly gray and white body, and touch of pink on the sides. When it flies, it flashes bright carmine under the wings. Related to the kingbirds, the scissortail is equally fearless in driving predators from its nest. Summering on the southern plains, most scissortails migrate to Central America in fall, but a few winter in southern Florida. In the east, the great crested flycatcher can be recognized by the bright yellow belly, bushy-headed look, and touches of rufous in the wings and tail. It is the size of a kingbird, but unlike the kingbirds, it tends to remain hidden in forested areas, being detected most often by its loud whistled calls. It builds its nest in tree cavities or sometimes in birdhouses. Common in summer throughout eastern North America, the great crested flycatcher winters mostly in the tropics. A western replacement for the great crested, the ash-throated flycatcher generally looks paler and more washed out, with a much lighter throat. It is found in a variety of western habitats, including open desert. Ash-throated flycatchers are widespread in summer, but in winter, most withdraw into Mexico. Named Phoebe for its call, this flycatcher has few obvious markings, but it is recognized by its gentle tail-dipping motion while perched. Phoebes often build their nests under bridges or on the rafters of buildings. In the Northeast, the eastern phoebe is one of the earlier songbird migrants to arrive in spring. Widespread in summer, it is the only flycatcher that commonly spends the winter in the southeastern United States. In California and the Southwest, few birds are so typical of lowland rivers as the black phoebe. It is usually seen perched near the water's edge, giving its sharp call notes and sallying out to catch flying insects. The black phoebe makes only a limited migration, and it can be found all year in most of its favored haunts. A phoebe decorated in earth tones is Say's phoebe, found in dry country throughout the West. It often builds its nest on the porch of a ranch house on the prairies. Brownish gray above and pale cinnamon below, it can be recognized as a phoebe by its gentle tail dipping when perched. Where it can find suitable open country, Say's phoebe will summer as far north as Alaska. Although it is drab and very plain in appearance, the western wood pewee is among the best known summer birds in many wooded areas of the West. Its nasal song can be heard throughout the season, even on hot days when other birds are silent. When it stops singing, however, it becomes just a small grayish flycatcher without distinctive markings. The summer range of the western wood pewee covers half the continent. It winters in the tropics. Plaintive whistles in the woods indicate that the eastern wood pewee is in residence. This small plain flycatcher is usually somewhat paler underneath than the western wood pewee, but voice is always its best field mark. The eastern wood pewee can be found in summer as far west as wooded river valleys on the Great Plains. Large-headed and short-tailed, the olive-sided flycatcher is usually found perched bolt upright on a dead branch at the very top of a tree, waiting to fly out after passing insects. It appears to wear an open vest with dark gray sides separated by a strip of white. Although it is widespread in summer in coniferous forest, it is uncommon in many parts of its range. Where it occurs, however, the olive-sided flycatcher advertises its presence with an emphatic whistled, "Quick 3 beers." Sometimes considered the bane of birdwatchers are the small flycatchers of the genus Empedonax. There are 10 species of Empedonax in North America, and all are small birds with pale eye rings and wing bars. They are all so similar that even experts cannot tell them apart except by voice. In the east, one of the most common Empedonax is the least flycatcher. Found in open woods, it is best recognized by its snappy Chebec song. Most common in the northeast, the least flycatcher is also found in summer west across much of Canada. The most widespread Empedonax in the southeastern states is the Acadian flycatcher. Common in swampy woodlands, it may be detected by its sharp call notes and song. Although the Acadian flycatcher is slightly larger and greener than most other Empedonax, visual differences are usually not apparent. Common over much of the West in summer is the well-named western flycatcher. Compared to other Empedonax in its range, it tends to look more yellow on the underparts, especially on the throat, although conditions of lighting can make these colors difficult to judge. The western flycatcher spends the summer in coniferous forest, but it may be found in other habitats during migration. Streamsides in desert regions provide a haven for the vermilion flycatcher. Most flycatchers are rather plain, but the male vermilion is a striking exception, decked in black and flaming red. To add to his charms, he has a display in which he puffs himself up like a ball and flutters slowly through the air, singing in flight. The object of his attention is plainer gray and white with a hint of pink on her underparts. The vermilion flycatcher is a southwestern specialty with a more limited range in winter. Autumn strays may show up farther afield. In its limited distribution in Texas, the loud, flashy great kiskadee is unmistakable by sight or sound. This big flycatcher is often found near water, where it may plunge for small fish as well as sallying out after large insects. Widespread in the tropics, the great kiskadee has recently been expanding its South Texas range. Although the lark family is well represented in the Old World, only one species is widespread in North America. Our horned lark is a bird of open ground, often found on plowed fields or on the short grass of airports. The pattern of black on its face and chest makes a better field mark than the tiny black horns on its head. Abundant on the Great Plains and common in parts of the north and west, the horned lark is less common toward the southeast. Swallows are graceful flyers that do almost all their feeding on the wing. They are often seen circling low over ponds and rivers in search of flying insects. Many swallows are quite sociable, nesting in colonies and traveling in large flocks. This is our only swallow that is truly swallow-tailed. Its tail is long and deeply forked, with white patches at the base, although it may simply look long and pointed in flight. The barn swallow scoops up pellets of mud in its bill and uses them to build its nest, plastered under the shelter of a barn, a bridge, or some other man-made structure. Found practically throughout North America in summer, the barn swallow winters in the tropics. Snowy white below and steel blue or green above, the tree swallow is recognized by its simple bicolored pattern. It normally nests in holes in trees, but it will readily accept birdhouses, including those put out for bluebirds. Widespread throughout the northern and central parts of the continent in summer, this is also the swallow most likely to be seen in winter. Concentrations in the thousands are seen in fall on the Atlantic coast and in winter in Florida. Strictly a western bird, the violet-green swallow summers from Mexico to Alaska, but winters mostly south of the United States. It is sharply bicolored, like the tree swallow, but has more white on the face and a white patch on either side of the rump. The cavity it chooses for nesting may be in a tree, in rocks, or in a giant cactus. A brown-backed swallow with a white throat and a narrow dark band across the chest is the bank swallow. For nesting, these birds dig horizontal tunnels in vertical dirt banks, usually close to water. They are highly colonial, and a bank may be riddled with their holes. Although they are widespread, the scarcity of good sites for nesting means that bank swallow colonies may be quite local and separated by many miles. Another brown-backed swallow that nests in dirt banks, the northern roughwing, is far less sociable than the bank swallow. It has a dingy brown throat and lacks the contrast of white throat and dark chest band shown by the bank swallow. Roughwings nest in scattered pairs, not in tight colonies, and they are rarely seen in large flocks. Summering throughout the warmer regions of North America, the roughwing may be found in winter in some southern states. The cliff swallow has a square-tipped tail, a dark chestnut throat, and usually a pale forehead, but it is best recognized by the pale buffy patch on the rump. This is the master architect among swallows, using mud to build a nest shaped like a jug or gourd with a narrow entrance. In former times, the colonies were placed under overhangs on cliffs, but now they are usually on buildings or under bridges. The increase in nesting sites has allowed the cliff swallow to become much more common in some parts of its range. At one time, it nested only in a few southwestern caves, but now that the cave swallow has learned to nest under bridges and in culverts, it is expanding its range. Like the cliff swallow, the cave swallow has a buffy rump patch, but its throat is also pale buff, not dark chestnut. Summering over much of Texas and north to Carlsbad Caverns, the cave swallow has also nested recently in Florida and Arizona. In the east, no other wild bird has accepted human hospitality so thoroughly as the purple martin. Most of its eastern colonies today are in multi-roomed martin houses. The return of the purple martins is one of the first signs of spring in many eastern states. In the west, most martins still nest in cavities in trees or giant cactus. This is our largest swallow. The female is pale gray to white on the forehead and underparts, while the male purple martin is glossy purplish black all over. A family that includes the jays, crows, ravens, and magpies, members of the Corvidae, are often referred to collectively as corvids. Although they are diverse in color and shape, most corvids have loud, harsh voices and omnivorous feeding habits. They are often seen in flocks. A flashy, noisy bird, the blue jay is impossible to overlook. Other kinds of jays have blue in the plumage, but this one is known by its crest, black neckband, and pattern of white in the wings and tail. The blue jay has varied tastes and comes to bird feeders for sunflower seeds, peanuts, and suet. Some of its call notes are musical, but its harsh alarm calls may serve to warn other birds of approaching danger. Southward flights of blue jays may be conspicuous in fall, but at least a few birds winter in northern parts of its range. Steller's jay, a dark blue and black resident of coastal and montane forest, replaces the blue jay over much of the west. It is a common visitor to some picnic grounds and campsites where it may hunt for leftovers. Its typical call notes are more low-pitched and rough than those of the blue jay. Like most other jays, Steller's is a permanent resident, rarely wandering far from its nesting grounds. A common gray and blue jay without a crest is the scrub jay, known by its whitish throat and faint necklace of streaks. The scrub jay is partial to acorns, so it is usually found near oak trees. But within its range, it will also come to backyard bird feeders for seeds. Common in parts of the west and southwest, the scrub jay is also found locally in central Florida. In canyons near the Mexican border, roving bands of gray-breasted jays are common in the woodlands of pine and oak. This is a heavier-looking bird than the scrub jay and more uniformly colored, blue-gray above, pale gray below. The young have yellow or pink on the bill. The gray-breasted jay is found in flocks at all seasons, and even nesting is a social activity with all the adults in a colony helping to feed the young. Resident in Arizona and southwestern New Mexico, the gray-breasted jay also reaches the Big Bend area of Texas. Around campsites and picnic grounds in the far north, the gray jay often comes in search of handouts. Its bold behavior and its partial black mask sometimes earn it the affectionate nickname of camp robber. As a young bird, it is dark charcoal gray all over and looks very different from the adult. The gray jay is widespread in the far north and in high mountains of the west. The green jay is a tropical bird, and it has a distinctly tropical appearance. It wears a gaudy pattern of green, purple, and black with a flash of yellow in the tail. In North America, it has a limited range, but it is common in some woodlots near the Mexican border. Its range in southern Texas has increased somewhat in recent years. The crow-shaped Clark's nutcracker is pale gray with a striking black and white pattern in the wings and tail. Living in pine woodlands of the west, it uses its long bill to extract the seeds from pine cones. In fall, it buries little piles of seeds in the ground. During winter, it is able to relocate these seeds for a reliable food source. A permanent resident in mountain pine forest, Clark's nutcracker rarely wanders into the lowlands. In open country with scattered trees in the west, magpies are often among the most noticeable of birds. Their long tails and striking black and white patterns make them unmistakable even in flight. This species, the yellow-billed magpie, is a California specialty, recognized by its bright yellow bill and yellow spot near the eye. Widespread in the central valleys of California, it has never been found outside the state boundaries. The common magpie over most of the West, as far north as Alaska, is the black-billed magpie. It lacks the bright bill color of its California relative, and it is somewhat larger, but the striking pattern of its plumage is the same. Its bulky stick nest is often found in the trees along rivers in grassland country. The ragged scarecrow in the farmer's field is disappearing from the American landscape, but the crow is still as common as ever in open countryside. Some other birds are all black in color, including starlings and grackles, but the crow is much larger than most of these. Compared to other crows and ravens, the American crow is most easily recognized by voice. Crows are often found in noisy flocks, especially in winter, when large numbers may gather to spend the night in a communal roost. Almost identical to the American crow, but slightly smaller, the fish crow is almost always found near water. Its best field mark is its voice, a nasal call that often sounds two-syllabled. However, young American crows in summer can make a sound that is very similar. Primarily a bird of the coast, the fish crow also extends far inland along major river systems. Famed for its role in superstition, the common raven is widespread in the wilder parts of North America. It looks like a giant crow with a heavy bill and wedge-shaped tail. It may be mistaken for a hawk when seen soaring overhead. Even in areas where they are numerous, common ravens are usually found only in pairs, not in flocks, and they usually place their nests on remote cliffs. Common ravens inhabit a variety of wild areas, from deserts to Arctic tundra. Grasslands of the Southwest are the home of the Chihuahuan raven, a small version of the common raven. It has a hidden patch of white at the base of the neck, but this is rarely seen. The Chihuahuan raven is more easily recognized by its habitat and its flat, croaking call notes. In winter, it often gathers in large flocks. In areas where common and Chihuahuan ravens both occur, the Chihuahuan is usually on open plains, away from the mountains. Short on color, but long on personality, the chickadees and titmice are small, active, acrobatic birds that search for insects around the branches and twigs of trees. Rather tame birds, they are often attracted to backyard bird feeders. They nest in holes in trees or in birdhouses. The contrasting dark bib and cap and the busybody personality are the marks of the chickadees. There are several species of chickadees found in different parts of North America. The Carolina chickadee is the only one in the southeastern states where it is common in woodlands and shaded yards. Its fussing call notes, sounding almost like the word chickadee, can be heard at all seasons, but its whistled song of 4 notes is most frequent in late winter and spring. The Carolina chickadee is a permanent resident in the east and southeast, from Philadelphia to St. Louis and southward. Visually, it is almost identical to the Carolina chickadee, but the black-capped usually sings a song of 2 notes, not 4. It is also a bit larger and shows a little more white in the wings. But range is the best distinction because the two rarely overlap. Common in the northeast, north of the range of the Carolina chickadee, the black-capped is also widespread in the west, mostly in deciduous groves. Similar to other chickadees in general pattern, but sporting a jaunty white stripe over the eye, the mountain chickadee is common in coniferous forests of western North America. Its whistled song and fussing call notes are recognizably similar to those of other chickadees. The mountain chickadee is mostly a permanent resident at upper elevations, but it occasionally wanders into the lowlands in winter. Along the Pacific coast and locally inland in the northwest lives the chestnut-backed chickadee. It is found exclusively in humid coniferous forest. The most colorful member of this group, it has a dark chocolate brown cap and a chestnut back. Its sides may be either gray or rufous. Its voice is a husky version of the familiar chickadee call. In the taller trees of canyons and valleys of the southwest, a bird that sounds like a chickadee is likely to be the bridled titmouse. With a white stripe over the eye, it might be mistaken for a mountain chickadee at first, but the bridled titmouse has a more complicated face pattern and a pointed gray crest outlined in black. Widespread south of the border, the bridled titmouse reaches the U.S. only in Arizona and western New Mexico. With its perky crest and wide-eyed expression, the little tufted titmouse is a favorite visitor to bird feeders in the east. Mostly mouse gray and white, it has a black forehead spot and a touch of rufous on the sides below the wings. Titmice often travel with chickadees in flocks in winter, exploring the larger branches while the chickadees work the outer twigs. A form of this bird found in South Texas has a white forehead and black crest, and is sometimes called the black-crested titmouse. One of the plainest birds in the West, the plain titmouse has no distinguishing marks aside from a small pointed crest, but it has the same colorful personality as other members of the family. It gives a wide variety of calls, including some that are much like those of chickadees. Although it is uncommon and local in some parts of the Southwest, the plain titmouse is a common bird of parks and yards along the California coast. The smallest songbird in the desert is the verdin, a distant relative of the chickadee family. Verdins are mostly gray, but the adult has a yellow head and a tiny spot of rufous on the shoulder. Immatures are drab all over. Besides eating small insects, verdins often visit flowers in the desert to feed on nectar. Common in desert areas where the remains of its globular nests may be found in practically every mesquite tree, the verdin is scarce toward the northern limits of its range. The bush tit has practically no distinguishing markings, so it may be difficult to recognize on the rare occasions when it sits still. Usually, however, a flock of bush tits may be known by their hyperactive behavior, rather long tails, and constant ticking or twittering notes while they forage. For nesting, bush tits weave a complex hanging bag with an entrance tube on the side. A bird of open woods and chaparral, the bush tit is often found in residential areas along the Pacific coast. Nuthatches are agile climbing birds, living on the trunks and branches of trees where they are able to walk down head first as well as scurrying up or around the limbs. They feed on insects in the bark and build their nests in cavities in the trees. Our largest member of this family, and the only one that is common in deciduous woodlands, is the white-breasted nuthatch. It is recognized by its white face surrounding a beady black eye and by its loud nasal call notes. In winter, traveling with flocks of chickadees and other birds, this nuthatch may visit bird feeders for suet or sunflower seeds. Although it is rare in the far north, the white-breasted nuthatch is widespread and common across the lower 48 states. A small nuthatch of the conifers, the red-breasted nuthatch, is not always noticeably red on the underparts. A better field mark is the face pattern, with a black stripe through the eye and a conspicuous white eyebrow. Summering mostly in the north and in high mountains in the west, this nuthatch is more widespread in winter, but it usually seeks groves of coniferous trees. In open pine woodlands of the south, noisy groups of little brown-headed nuthatches clamber about like acrobats on the branches, frequently hanging upside down. Although they are often high in the trees, their squeaky call notes betray their presence. Natural cavities or old woodpecker holes provide their usual nest sites, but a pair will sometimes accept a birdhouse as a substitute. A permanent resident in the southeast, the brown-headed nuthatch reaches its northern limit in Delaware. Almost identical to the brown-headed nuthatch, but with a slightly grayer cap and different call notes, the pygmy nuthatch is most easily recognized by range. It is found only in the west. The pygmy nuthatch favors woodlands of pine, especially yellow pine, and is almost never found away from them. No bird has a closer relationship with tree bark than the brown creeper. It spends its life creeping methodically up one tree, then flying down to the base of another to start its upward spiral once again. For camouflage, the brown creeper is patterned like bark. It even hides its nest under a hanging strip of loose bark against a tree trunk. The creeper spends the summer mostly in northern and mountainous areas, but it may be found over most of North America in winter. Wrens are mostly small brown birds, rather plain in appearance, but with rich, melodious voices. Most kinds feed actively in dense, low growth, where they may be difficult to see. If looks were everything, the house wren would hardly be popular. But it is a favorite backyard bird because of its rich, bubbling song and because it readily moves into birdhouses. If no birdhouse is available, it may nest in any sort of crevice. Mostly plain gray-brown, it can be recognized by its small size, thin bill, black barring on the wings and tail, and habit of holding its tail tilted up above the level of its back. Widespread in summer, the house wren winters only as far north as the southern tier of states. A dark, stub-tailed sprite of the northern woods, this wren is often difficult to observe as it creeps about in thickets and under fallen logs. When it allows a glimpse, it may suggest a house wren, but it has heavier barring on the sides and a more noticeable pale eyebrow. Its long, complex song, heard in spring and summer, is a remarkable performance. In many areas that lie south of the Canadian forest, the winter wren visits only in migration or in winter. The Carolina wren, more colorful than most of its relatives, wears bright buff below and chestnut above, set off by a white eyebrow. Living in brushy woods and backyards, it is found in pairs at all seasons. Both members of a pair may engage in a rich, frolicking song and various loud call notes. The Carolina wren is mostly a bird of the southeast. Its northern limit may change with time, since it becomes rare after especially harsh winters. Buick's wren may suggest a washed-out Carolina wren in pattern, but it has a long tail with a bit of white at the corners, and it often flips the tail about expressively as it hops through the undergrowth. The song of Buick's wren varies with geography. In some places it sounds almost like a song sparrow, while in other areas it gives a simple trill. Very common in some parts of the West, Buick's wren has become a rare bird east of the Great Plains. Big and bold, with a gravelly voice, the cactus wren hardly seems typical of the wren family. It is one of the most conspicuous birds of the southwestern deserts. Building its bulky nest of sticks in the protection of a cholla cactus, the wren is able to slip in among the thorny branches with ease. The cactus wren is a permanent resident wherever it occurs, and a pair may defend their territory all year. The rock wren is able to make a living in many arid zones where there is practically no vegetation. It is often seen scurrying down a dry wash or perched atop a boulder, bobbing up and down on its rather long legs. It builds its nest in a crevice among the rocks, often laying out a sort of patio of small pebbles in front of the nest. Near the limits of its range or during its wanderings in migration, the rock wren may be found in the stony riprap around dam spillways. Steep-walled canyons of the west provide the perfect surroundings for the loud, echoing song of the canyon wren. Although the bird may be hard to see as it bounces among the rocks, this is one of our most colorful wrens. It has a white throat and chest contrasting with the bright rufous-brown body. Where it can find the proper habitat, the canyon wren is a permanent resident, and it may sing at any time of the year. A sputtering song from deep in the cattails announces the presence of the marsh wren. This bird is often secretive, hiding in the marsh, but it may be lured into the open by squeaking sounds. Within its wide range, the marsh wren has a very patchy distribution, and it has disappeared from many areas as marshes have been drained. Something like a cross between a wren and a duck, the dipper is a songbird with a unique lifestyle. It finds almost all of its food underwater in rushing mountain streams. Chunky, short-tailed, and dark slaty gray all over, it is likely to be seen perched on a rock in midstream. Submerging itself in the water, it walks on the creek bottom, searching for insect larvae and other small aquatic life. This is one of the few water birds that can stay throughout the winter even in northern Canada, where swift-flowing streams remain unfrozen. The kinglets and gnatcatchers are very small birds that search actively for insects in trees or shrubbery. The tiny kinglets are known by their habit of nervously flicking their wings open and shut. There is nothing kingly about them, aside from their colorful crowns. This kinglet, the golden-crowned, has black and white face stripes setting off a crown patch that is yellow in females, yellow and red in males. At all seasons, the golden-crowned kinglet is usually found in coniferous trees, where it may be hard to observe. Its high, thin calls often reveal its presence. Nesting in northern forests and in high mountains of the west, it spreads to the south in winter. A plainer bird than the golden-crowned kinglet, the ruby-crowned usually conceals its red crest. More consistent field marks are the broken eye ring and the wing-flicking habit. Ruby-crowned kinglet is usually easier to see than the golden-crowned because it will forage in low deciduous brush. Its common call note is a short scolding. Its complex song is a remarkable performance for such a small bird. Ruby-crowned kinglets can be found practically everywhere on the continent in either summer, winter, or migration. Gnatcatchers are tiny sprites with longer tails than the kinglets. The blue-gray gnatcatcher is common in woodlands, especially in the east, but it is easy to overlook when it stays high in the trees. With a good view, it is known by its blue-gray back, plain underparts, narrow white eye ring, and extensive white in the outer tail feathers. Its rather peevish song and calls are also distinctive. The blue-gray gnatcatcher is most common in the southern states. and tends to be rare toward the northern end of its range. Although it has slightly more black in the tail than other gnatcatchers, the best mark for the black-tailed gnatcatcher is its habitat in southwestern deserts. It is a permanent resident there, and it is found in pairs all year. In summer, the male develops a distinctive black cap. The thrushes, bluebirds, solitaires, and robins are mostly medium-sized songbirds that feed on berries and small fruits as well as insects. Most members of this group have very musical songs. With bright colors and gentle voices, the bluebirds are perennial favorites wherever they are found. The place to find the eastern bluebird is in semi-open country with fields and meadows for feeding and scattered trees with cavities for nesting. Competition for nest sites with the introduced European starling led to a decline in bluebird numbers during the 20th century. However, because the bluebirds will nest in birdhouses, they have been helped in many areas by ambitious bluebird trail projects. Although it is called eastern, this bluebird is also found in Mexico and locally in the southwestern states. A replacement species over much of the west is the western bluebird. It is similar to the eastern bluebird, but the male's throat is blue, not rufous, and it often has a rufous patch on the back. Its calls have a slightly harder quality than those of the eastern bluebird. The female western bluebird is much duller than the male, with only a pale wash of the blue and rufous hues. The mountain bluebird, despite its name, is not restricted to the mountains. It may be found on open prairies at all elevations, especially in the north. Searching for insects, the mountain bluebird may hover low over the grass on rapidly beating wings. The male is blue all over, somewhat paler on the underparts. Females are gray with just a hint of blue. Mountain bluebirds get as far north as northwestern Canada in summer. During the winter, they may wander well out onto the Great Plains. A trim, gray bird of the western mountains, Townsend's solitaire is usually seen perched bolt upright at the top of a small tree. At rest, its only conspicuous mark is a white eye ring, but in flight it shows white tail edges and a buff patch in each wing. Its complicated song is not often heard. Summering as far north as Alaska, the solitaire may wander well eastward onto the plains in winter, especially where it can find groves of junipers. 5 species of brown thrushes are found in North America. All are some shade of brown above and more or less spotted on the chest. They may be difficult to observe as they search for insects on the forest floor or for berries in the trees, but all have rich and distinctive songs. Not so shy and retiring as the other brown thrushes, the wood thrush will sometimes come out in the open to forage on a lawn, and its flute-like song may be heard along shaded streets in eastern suburbs. It is more distinctly marked than its relatives, with bold black spots on the underparts and bright, foxy tones above, especially on the head. Common in summer in the eastern United States, the wood thrush winters in the tropics. A northern breeder, like most of the brown thrushes, the hermit thrush is the only one likely to be found in North America in winter. It is less strikingly marked than the wood thrush, and its upper parts are mostly dull brown, except that the tail is bright rufous. Its haunting song may be heard across the northern forest and in shady spruce groves in the mountains in summer. The brown thrush, called the veery, may be known by its pale, rufous-brown back, its very lightly spotted chest, and the rather blank expression on its face. Its breezy, spiraling song is easily recognized. Damp, deciduous thickets provide the favored summer home for the veery. Although veeries are widespread, they are much more common in the east than in the west, and migrants travel mostly through the southeastern states. Swainson's thrush is very dull brown on the upper parts, but its chest is often washed with buff, and it usually has a buffy eye ring. Although all 5 brown thrushes migrate through the east, only Swainson's and hermit are likely to be seen as migrants on the Great Plains and in the west. The song of Swainson's thrush is a series of notes tending to rise in pitch. Swainson's thrush is common in summer across the northern forest, less common in the mountains of the west. The most northerly of the brown thrushes in summer, the gray-cheeked is also the dullest in color and often the most difficult to observe. Its descending song may recall that of the veery, but it usually has a more nasal tone. Nesting in boreal forest and even at the edge of the tundra, the gray-cheeked thrush migrates through the eastern states and winters entirely in South America. One of our best-known birds is the American robin, found in parks and gardens all over the continent. Famous for its conspicuous habit of hunting earthworms on the lawn, it actually spends more time feeding on berries, wild fruit, and insects. Adults are unmistakable, but juvenile robins are heavily spotted at first and can appear confusingly different from their parents. Robins from the Arctic are highly migratory. At more temperate latitudes, robins often travel in large flocks during the winter. Although its colors may suggest a robin, the varied thrush is usually a much more elusive denizen of dense forests in the far west. It is marked by a dark band across the chest and by orange bars in the wings, conspicuous when the bird flies. Summering mainly in humid forests of the Pacific Northwest, it spreads south in winter and occasionally strays eastward. The haunting, whistled song of the varied thrush is often delivered from the topmost spire of a tall spruce. For most people, the wren tit is nothing more than a voice in the chaparral along the Pacific coast. Slipping furtively through the dense brush, it seldom allows a glimpse. When it does come out in the open, it may be known by its small size, plump brown body, long tail, and staring pale eye. Most numerous in coastal areas, the wren tit is also found in thickets in the foothills of the Sierra. The thrashers and mockingbirds, sometimes called mimic thrushes, are slim, long-tailed birds that are all accomplished songsters. They often search for insects on the ground or for berries in low shrubbery. A slim, gray bird with white patches in the wings and tail, the northern mockingbird often flashes its wings open while foraging, perhaps to startle hidden insects into moving. Famed for its imitations of other bird songs, the mockingbird may sing all night on moonlit nights in spring. During the summer, it may feed largely on berries, and a mockingbird will often stake out a berry-producing hedge as its winter territory. Most common in the south, this bird is called northern only because there are other kinds of mockingbirds in the tropics. Dense thickets are the home of the gray catbird. It can be elusive at times, but not only does it have a meowing call note, it also seems to be as curious as a cat and will often come out to investigate the observer. Its song is a disorganized jumble of notes, often with cat-like sounds thrown in. Mostly plain slaty gray with a black cap, the gray catbird shows no color aside from a patch of rufous under the tail. Although it is widespread in summer, the catbird is much more common in the east than in the west. Although it might be mistaken for a wood thrush, the brown thrasher is much longer-tailed, has stripes instead of spots on the underparts, and has yellow eyes. The thrasher is usually found lurking on the ground under dense thickets, thrashing the leaves aside with its bill in search of insects. Its song, often given from a higher exposed perch, features many doubled phrases and notes. The only thrasher found in the east, it mostly withdraws from the northern part of its range in winter. The staring orange-yellow eyes and heavy black bill give the curve-billed thrasher a rather fierce expression. These are practically its only field marks because its plumage is all gray-brown with faint spotting on the chest. The curved bill is very common in deserts of the southwest, usually building its nest among the protective spines of the cholla cactus. The bird seems to call attention to itself with its call, a loud, double-noted whistle. The curve-billed thrasher is absent from the deserts of California, but it is common from Arizona to Texas. On the Pacific coast lives the California thrasher, a big, gray-brown bird with a sickle-shaped bill and a tawny patch under the tail. Although it is often common in chaparral and even in residential neighborhoods, it may escape notice because it is usually close to the ground in dense cover, except when it is singing. Appropriately named, the California thrasher is found in the United States only in California. A thrasher of the desert grasslands, Bendire's, is very similar to its neighbor, the curve-billed thrasher, in overall appearance. However, the bill of Bendire's is relatively short and straight and pale at the base. When it begins to sing, Bendire's thrasher confirms its identity with a continuous musical warble, unlike the jerky start and stop phrases of other thrashers. Found in summer in open desert with good ground cover, it has a more restricted range in winter. Our only widespread member of the pipit family is the water pipit. A buffy brown bird that walks on the ground, it might be mistaken for a sparrow, except that it has a thin bill, and it pumps its tail up and down when it walks. In winter, it is usually found in flocks on open fields and lake shores. Water pipits nest in the Arctic and above tree line in the mountains, but they go to warmer climates in winter. The name waxwing refers to waxy red tips on certain wing feathers, rarely noticeable in the wild. More obvious is the yellow band on the tip of the tail, a mark shared by no other birds in North America. The cedar waxwing is the most familiar species. It has an elegant appearance at close range, colored in soft brown, gray, and yellow. Waxwings are sociable at all seasons, and flocks may appear unpredictably to feed on berries and small fruits. Because of its erratic wanderings, the cedar waxwing may be common in an area one year and rare the next. Even more unpredictable in its travels is the Bohemian waxwing, a bird of the north and northwest. It is larger than the cedar waxwing and often looks darker and grayer, with a chestnut patch under the tail and a pattern of yellow and white stripes in the wing. Slim, crested birds of the southwest, phainopeplas, feed heavily upon berries. Mistletoe berries are a staple of their diet, and these birds may play a major role in moving mistletoe seeds from one tree to another in the desert. Males are glossy black, with a white wing patch that is mostly concealed at rest. Females are more softly colored in gray. They are found at all seasons in most parts of their range, but their numbers may vary from month to month. The predators of the songbird clan, shrikes, are marked by the hook-tipped bill and black mask. They feed mostly on insects, but they will also catch rodents and even small birds, sometimes impaling their prey on a thorn. Any shrike seen south of central Canada in summer is the loggerhead shrike. It might be mistaken for a mockingbird at first, but notice the mask and the black in the wings and tail. In recent years, the loggerhead shrike has become quite rare in the Northeast, but it is still common in parts of the West. Nesting in the far north, the northern shrike is known to most observers only as a winter visitor. It is rare toward the southern limits of its range. The northern is very similar to the loggerhead shrike, but it is slightly larger, with a heavier bill, and may show fine barring. Its black mask may appear constricted in front of the eye. The immature northern shrike is more easily distinguished by its brownish tones and barred underparts. Vireos are small to medium-sized birds that search for insects on leaves and twigs among heavy foliage. Most vireos are rather plain in color and methodical in their movements. They are difficult to see at times, but all have distinctive songs. While many vireos are treetop birds, the white-eyed is a shy denizen of the thickets. Its snappy, jumbled song is heard far more often than the bird is seen. When it does come out in the open, it is recognized by its two white wing bars, yellow wash on the sides, yellow eye ring, and staring white eyes. It also tends to move about more actively than most other vireos. Widespread in the eastern states in summer, the white-eyed vireo is most common in the south, where it may be found all year. White throat, white wing bars, and contrasting white spectacles around the eyes are the marks of the solitary vireo. Its overall color varies with geography. In the west, it is quite gray, but eastern birds are olive on the back and washed with yellow on the sides. The solitary vireo usually forages along the limbs and larger branches in trees, often singing as it goes. It is a common summer resident in mixed woods and may remain throughout the winter in the southern states. In oak woodlands of the eastern United States, the yellow-throated vireo is a common summer resident. More colorful than most of its relatives, it has white wing bars, bold spectacles around its eyes, and a bright yellow throat. The deliberate phrases of its song have a rich, husky quality. The yellow-throated vireo is primarily a southern bird, and its summer range barely reaches southern Canada. One of the smaller and more active members of its family, Hutton's vireo, may sometimes be confused with the ruby-crowned kinglet, but it has the slightly thicker bill typical of vireos. It is a bird of oak woodland in the southwest and along the Pacific coast. Its song is a rather uninspired repetition of a simple rising or falling note. Most vireos are migratory, but Hutton's is a permanent resident throughout its range. One of the most numerous birds in summer in eastern North America, the red-eyed vireo, is not often seen because it keeps to the tops of forest trees. Its monotonous song of short phrases gives it away. The red eyes of this vireo are not noticeable at a distance. A better field mark is the face pattern, with a gray crown and a narrow black outline to the white eyebrow stripe. Although the summer range of the red-eyed vireo extends far to the northwest, its migration is mostly through the eastern states, and it winters in South America. Passing through Philadelphia only in migration, the Philadelphia vireo is found mostly in eastern Canada in summer. Its song is much like that of the red-eyed vireo, but this bird is smaller with a shorter bill and a less contrasting head pattern. The throat and chest are washed with creamy yellow. The Philadelphia vireo is usually an uncommon bird in most areas. One of the plainest of the vireos, marked only by a whitish eyebrow, the warbling vireo is most easily known by its rich, warbling song. It is a common summer resident in deciduous woodlands over much of North America. Like other members of its family, the warbling vireo will sing throughout the day in summer, sometimes even while sitting on its nest. Widespread in summer and in migration, the warbling vireo is rare only in the far north and in some parts of the southeast.